everyone, and I think we are recording. Good evening, everyone. I am back with Alistair Unicorn of Scotland, and we are here to talk about the Megatron 3000 tournament that you TO'd and basically got running. And we've promised that we would start out talking about the amazing amount of sponsor gifts that you got for this
Yes,
tournament. Do you want to do like a little bit of a talk about that
please, if I
before we
could.
do anything?
I truly owe it to our sponsors of the event for the Megatron 3000 because they were extremely generous. There was lots of them, and I really want to make sure that they all get the exposure that they're worth. So I've had to compile a little list to remind myself as to how many there were. So, in no particular order. And what I would ask is anybody who views this video, um, these companies have supported our community in Scotland, but they're also available for your communities to shop and frequent. So, in no particular order, there is First Core Miniatures. They supplied a lot of metal miniature blister packs, including some of their British Expeditionary Force miniatures, which were excellent. Warlord Games themselves, they've got a new regime in place for tournament support. So we fill in their sort of middle category for support. So I was able to select box sets for prize support. Weldon Tabletop Wargaming, these guys were the key sponsor for the event. Prizes for first, second, and third, which included an army box set, a Sherman tank troop, so that the box with 3 Sherman tanks in it for second. Weldon Tabletop Wargaming are an online shop based in the England somewhere.
Yeah,
Sorry, operated
and
by a
but
gentleman
that was very generous of them.
hugely
That's
generous.
amazing. Yeah.
The gentleman that operates that shop is called Dan Cooper. I'm a customer of his, uh, and I hope many more people will join him. And hugely generous for a store like that to support an event like mine. Any Scale Miniatures. We also had Rubicon. They're a huge brand
Yeah.
within our game. Dice of War, all the way from
Personal
Australia.
fan of Rubicon
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
Dice of
am.
War. They oh man.
I
Yeah.
To send sets of dice for sponsorship from Australia to Scotland, that's a huge commitment from that company, and I cannot thank them enough. KO Design, the Scandinavian company, I believe, they supplied some excellent dice bags, which they went quite really fast because we had a prize table set up
Mm,
so people could just choose what they want, and the dice bags disappeared very, very quickly. MicroArt Studios, I believe they're based in Poland or
yeah.
Eastern
Yeah.
Europe, certainly. They supplied, they do pre-painted MDF buildings, along with other uh, miniature sets, including terrain bases. They sent a fantastic little prize support package, and that went to the people that brought scenery and tables to the event. Gamer Mat AU, again, they supplied a 6 foot by 4 foot neoprene mat, and that went in a raffle to all the players that contributed scenery to the event. And we'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alba Studios are a local company to Scotland. They are a commission painting and 3D printing company based in Aberdeen. They supplied some prize support as well, which is really kind of them. Goblin Gaming, another online gaming store. They were kind enough to send some online vouchers as prizes for the players, which I'm very thankful for. 3D Printing Valley, they sent little samples along of some of their product, but they also sent, this is amazing, £50 worth of vouchers to be used on their web store. And effectively, I think some of their tanks retail for like 14
Yeah.
and £15, so that amazingly
That's a
generous.
lot of miniatures you can
Yeah,
put through
Carol
that.
at 3D Print Valley, you're a top bloke. I'm so thankful for you. And then finally, we had Great Escape Games. Great Escape Games, they came on really late in the day. I'm not sure if our emails got crosswire or lost, but as soon as they picked up upon it, they were straight onto it and supplied one of their sort of, I think it was a box of 30 metal Italians, plus a couple of blister packs, and they sent me 30 individual sample miniatures. So with all the stuff they sent, including
Wow.
their Dead Man's Hand pamphlets, I was able to do a welcome gift bag and find some other products to go in it. So every player that attended got a little welcome gift bag, and that was courtesy of Great Escape Games, and that was just unbelievable.
That's so
But
cool.
the final sponsor, another one local to Scotland, and he helped supply the trophies,
Mm,
Demonscape,
yeah.
owned and run by a gentleman called Terry Millard, who actually played on the day. He almost got one of his trophies back, um, but we, partly through his sponsorship, the trophies were iconic now to this event. I know he does very similar designs for Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar events, but I think for the Megatron 3000 moving forward, his trophies are
It's gonna
key
be
to it.
those
So
again. Yeah.
I hope so. So, Bo, thank you for that little segment, and thank you for the listeners to listening
Yeah.
through that list of sponsors. They were hugely generous, and I hope that some or all of them come back on again for next year. That they feel like they got value from it. So, fingers crossed.
It's one of the things I've noticed going to tournaments in the UK that you guys one thing you always seem to get a lot of sponsors, and you really work hard to fill out those sponsor gaps, and those like welcome bags that you get where there's a miniature and some candy or whatever.
Yep.
It's just such a nice addition to tournaments that I think that the European tournaments could really learn something from.
It's
It's really cool.
and it doesn't have to be every tournament. I think
No,
every event has to have their own character, and
yeah,
this is going to be the only event I run every year, so I can pour all my effort into it to make sure it's got the most value
yeah,
for the players, and it showed because we're about to start talking about the player pack, but at its
yeah,
peak,
yeah,
it was a 1 day event with 3 games. I had 34 players signed up,
yeah.
and then life happens. Players drop out
Somebody
for
dropped out. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
How many
players drop out.
did end up playing?
Ended with 28,
Yeah,
so
that's
still
still
very
pretty
happy.
good. That's
Yep.
still pretty good. Yeah,
So with
that's
that,
a
Bo, do you want to get cracking into the player pack?
yes. I think we should. I will just share my screen. I have the player pack. You guys, you can all go and watch this because it's all out on Facebook if you want to go there. Do you have it anywhere else but Facebook, by the way, Alistair?
Uh, just on Facebook.
Okay. The event was organized mainly via Facebook, via the Scottish Facebook group, and this is the Megatron 3000 event. It was held at Common Ground Games. You had 2.5 hours per game with time
Correct.
warnings given each hour. Did you
Correct.
find that that was enough? Because I also noticed that you were running 1250 points, so that's a lot of points
Yep.
for a game.
Yep.
Some would say that
So
it's like a bit pressured, but how did you find it?
um, I can only. I'll have to say, look, the it was 1250 points, as you said. There's a
Yep.
dice cap of 18 order dice on the lists,
Mm,
and it's a single theater selector. Um,
yeah.
so there's built-in limitations, but I have to say, watching on the first round, when I called time after two and
Mm,
a half hours, there were about a third of the room, so at least 6 or 8 games were still underway. I'm not quite sure what
okay.
stage they were all at, but at the end of round two, I would say that was maybe down to 4 or 5 games, and then again the same. In the last round, there was maybe only
Mm.
4 or 5 games that were still in play. Um,
4 or 5 games out of 28 players. So
yeah,
yeah,
out of
yeah,
out of 14 games being
that's
played, so
yeah,
I I felt it was
pretty
comfortable.
much to be expected, I guess. Yeah.
Yep, and I would say that I received no negative feedback from the
Mm.
players, in that regards, in regards to timing. So
Okay, That's good. And I mean, many of the players who attended, I noticed, were experienced players, and experienced players should be able to finish up a 1250
Yep,
point game in 2.5 hours. That is very possible, especially with the dice cap, because it keeps the horde armies away, right? Um, you had selected a very like interesting approach to theater selectors because it was one single selector and one theater selector only, and at the
yes,
same time it had to be you had to, as soon as you pick one, that was locked and nobody else could pick it, right?
correct.
So players had to choose as soon as they entered as soon as they bought their ticket for this. um, did many people like doubt what they were going with, or when you were? I mean, I would have been all over the place if that was me going.
Though that's when I was writing the pack and creating this format. Um, to address the first thing you said, that the theatre selector had to come from one of the campaign books, so we
Yep,
weren't using any of the selectors from the
yep,
Armies of books.
yep,
The reason for that, there's multiple reasons for that, but one of them is that those army books are so old now, and I cannot remember how much research really went into those theatre selectors. Whereas I know from the modern campaign books that
yep.
they're written with more of a historical, grasp and understanding.
Mm,
Uh, you can see it in the scenarios that are in those campaign books, and the theatre selectors, I believe, in theory, reflect that. So
yeah,
I wanted to put the focus on those, and I think it was one of our local players said, "Why do we buy these books if we never use them?" I'm like,
yeah.
and that was the trigger for this event. I was like,
That
"Good
was
point.
what actually pushed you to
Yep,
say, well,
yep,
we are going to use them.
yep. Good point. We're only going to use them and nothing else."
Yeah.
Um,
Many people, I think, would be fearful that this would be an unbalanced approach. Um, And we are going to talk about what happened and how this influences the
yeah,
meta of what comes out of this, because this will be a three-part video, basically, where we're doing the pack first, and then we are going to talk about what didn't work, and then we're going to talk about what worked. So going over the top lists and the meta for that.
one of
But
your other
but
points, Bo, that
yeah,
when you commented that it's the decision making,
yeah.
the reason I wanted players to commit early, and this is quite selfish, but was to drive ticket sales. I wanted I wanted tickets to sell quickly so that I knew it was going to be it was an event that could run.
Yeah.
So if there was this mad scramble for selectors that players really wanted, then they would put their money down. But I also work in a mechanism later on, and I called it the administration fee. If anybody wanted to change their selector after the initial purchase, they had to pay £2, and that money went towards the prize pool, which I've just read the sponsors that the
Mm,
prize pool was good. And £2, that's a cheap cup of coffee.
it
It's
is.
not.
Yeah. It's not
Um,
it's not like you're getting a huge parking
no,
ticket or anything.
no. I never, I didn't build an extension on my house or anything like that with profits or anything. But it was also a mechanism that, if you were going to any other normal tournament, you would chop and change your list,
Yeah, you
half a
would.
dozen times
Yeah,
before you sent it
yeah,
off to the TO.
yes.
So I wanted players to have that opportunity, that if they found something better, or if
Mm.
they lost faith in what they wanted to use, then they could change it. Uh, and I know what you're going to ask next. Yes, lots of players use that mechanism. Uh, I think the record, I'm not going to name his name. He knows who
Nope.
he is. 5 times.
Oh, 5
Yeah, 5 times.
Okay.
And there was one player that made a change, and he paid me on the day. He gave me £2 on the day in cash.
Said, I'm
It was
changing
crazy.
this.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it was all fine.
Yeah.
But again, it was, what it meant was that I didn't want repetition. I didn't want, I didn't know if there were,
And you didn't get it. I
no,
mean, the
that was,
lists were very varied.
and that was part of the goal, was to have no selector was ever repeated,
Mm.
which then meant that the variety of lists were there was 28 unique lists.
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Fantastic, amazing. I mean, going straight from the other tournaments we've seen over these last few weeks, where all the top uh, lists were all Soviets and Brits. I mean, this is just having those varied lists. I really love it. Right. Another thing I need to ask you about is the battle points and how all that worked out. So the winner gets 5 points, the loser gets 1 point, and if you have a draw, both players receive 3 points.
Correct.
Um, so you're not as penalized as you see in some tournament systems for drawing actually here.
Correct.
Okay. And at
Um,
the same time, you also get points for other stuff.
yeah, so as you've shown on the screen, you get one battle point for killing your opponent's HQ.
Yeah.
You get one battle point for keeping your own HQ alive, and then something that's quite common in
Mm.
a lot of tournaments is there's a secondary objective placed on the table. For that one, I was awarded 2 battle points,
Okay.
and for the scoring and to achieve the victory of the tournament, it was whoever has the most battle points
Mm.
wins the event. So
So you could collect quite a lot of battle points because that's 4 battle points per game, which means you could lose and still, if you collected all the battle points, you would get 5 points for a
yep,
loss.
yep, that's exactly it. The maximum number of points you could get for a draw was
Mm.
7.
Woo!
So if you were drawing the game, 3 points, get
Yeah.
the secondary objective, 4, 5, kill
Mm.
your opponent's HQ, keep yours alive, 7 points for a draw.
Yeah.
What it meant was that it ensured that players could keep on pushing. As you said, if you were going to
Yeah.
lose the game, you can still walk away with 5 points by 1 point for
Yeah.
losing, 2 points for the secondary objective, keep your HQ alive, kill your opponent's HQ, 5 points for losing. So never I wanted players to never give up on, if the mission's gone, but don't give up playing. Keep pushing, keep pushing.
Yeah.
And it, when we look at the results, in the coming videos, it worked. It really worked.
Amazing. That's so cool.
Yep.
Um, I love it. Right. Okay, so that was the pack. Is there anything about this pack that you think we should mention right now?
Uh, there's a few little things that I did with the pack. One of them was that I had the missions preset when the pack was released.
Yeah,
So it was meeting engagement, key positions, and sectors straight from the rulebook.
pretty
Uh,
standard. Yeah.
yep, I wanted that to be upfront. Part of the reason for that was that if I had to play, I didn't want anybody to say that I had forewarning of what the missions were going to be.
Yeah.
So and I remember as well, I selected 3 lists and sent them all to you months ago,
Yeah.
as a sort of safety net. I had a few little special house rules in. One of them was for the Italian army.
Hmm?
Regardless if you were attacker defender, any Italian army would get their defensive positions
Yeah.
automatically.
I think that's very fair. I mean,
Yeah,
the Italians are just so behind on their national special rules.
yeah, poor,
Yeah.
poor little past eaters they are.
Yeah.
Um, any theatre selector from the Stalingrad expansion book could not take Panzerfausts.
Okay.
It's a quirk within the book that
Yeah.
because in some of the selectors it refers you to units from the Soviet army book, and then
Mm.
when you go to that unit in the army book, they can then get Panzerfaust. It's like
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
put that in, and then just a provision for national special rules that you can only use one. Uh,
Mm.
that was to mitigate the Western Desert anomalies when you
Yeah.
can get
There are a few
yeah
where you can sort of mix them. Yeah.
yeah. So wanted to mitigate that. Um, And I suppose the overarching thing about the player pack was that I never stated whether it was a competitive tournament, a beginner tournament. It was just tournament.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know what was going to happen. What did happen, Bo,
Yeah.
I think was something pretty special, and un I, I couldn't account for it going in. There were lots of new players there.
Yeah.
During my player briefing in the morning, I made everybody whose first tournament was put their hand up. I think at least 8 or 9 hands went up. First
Wow.
bolt action tournament ever. There were players within the local community that had come back to the game for this event. I hadn't seen them for years,
Yes.
but they had just decided to come back. I spotted historical players
Yeah.
in amongst the
At the
mix.
tournament.
They were very happy to be there, and the competitive players, all four competitive, historical, casual, beginner, they were all at the event and they were all happy at the start. And I'm going to nip it in the bud. They were all happy at the end as well, because the competitive players could be competitive with the
Yes.
rules set.
Yeah.
The historical players,
They were bringing historical lists.
they were bringing historical lists, and whenever they had to play a game, even if it was against a competitive player, it's still a historical list they're playing against because it's a theatre selector. So the limitations were built in. The beginners were happy because they weren't going to be facing off against, 3 units of Gurkha paratroopers and Bren carriers backed
Stewart
up by twin
spam.
Stuarts
Yeah,
with,
yeah, yeah.
or 5 multi launchers from the Soviets.
Mhm.
And the casual players were happy just because of the same thing. I don't
I
I
mean,
don't know if we've
that
cracked
is
it,
pretty
but
special. I've never heard of rivet counter historical players being happy in a tournament setting ever. Um,
it happened. It was amazing.
man, I'm gonna have to copy this format.
If and this is something maybe for TOs around the world, or
Yep.
whoever does watch your videos, the administration side is a lot.
Yeah.
Trying to to make sure you keep the list up to date as to what theatre selectors have been taken.
Yeah, you have to do that every
Has to be
single day.
constant, because
Yeah.
there's players watching.
Yeah.
I had to knock a few people back because they were picking selectors that were already taken, because I was
Oh, that
half
sucks.
I
Yeah.
was half a day behind my
Yeah.
updates. The Everything works in concert, I believe. The dice limitation,
Mm.
18 order dice, keeps it to time, but
Yeah.
it's not too restrictive because it's a single theatre selector.
Yeah. And
Um,
1250 gives you enough to play with at the same
12,
time.
1250, I think, is the most important thing, Bo.
Yeah.
Because when we start talking about some of the units that are taken and the options that the theatre selectors have got, to really flesh out the options, you need the 1250 points.
Yeah.
The video you did for my Bloody Gulch
Yep.
US D-Day selector,
Yep.
I had 3 Shermans. You need 1250 points to get 3 Shermans.
Otherwise, you can't fit them in. There's not enough points.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that is special about that selector, is that you can do that, and it's the same for a lot of other selectors that you do. Your options have increased.
Yeah.
You can have a few more armored cars, or
Yeah.
you can have more infantry options or snipers, and
Yeah.
you need the points to do that. If not, to try and do it at 1,000 points, I
It
think it would
becomes
lose.
too limiting. Yeah.
Yeah, it would lose that special feel.
Mm.
And 1250 points, they can bring the big stuff, which we're going to get to in a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think we are. So, is there anything you would point out really worked well and made this work well? And is there anything that made it that you would maybe change going forward for Megatron 6000?
Um, but mate, this is going to sound really arrogant.
Mm.
I'm going to run exactly the same pack next year with
Yep.
no changes at all.
Yep.
The timings worked. I mean, I had to
Yep.
crack the whip, but the timings worked. The battle points, they generated a clean result, was the term I
Yep.
used to the players. Tiebreaker, I used a strength of schedule tiebreaker,
Yeah.
and if that failed, then it would be dice kills. I
Yeah.
never had to go. I never had to do the dice count. Strength of schedule.
Was
There was
enough. Yeah.
2 places that had to be split,
Mm.
and I think it was somebody tied for 15th, and somebody tied for like 22nd and 23rd.
Something that it's
It's
not
not.
that important.
It's not life. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. So the battle points separated each other.
Mm.
Timings, points. The only thing I did say to all the players on the day after the event was done was that if they plan to come back next year, they have to choose a different nation to play. And the reason for that was that I want those players to come back with fresh armies, fresh ideas. I don't want them digging into the selector that they've already picked and trying to fine tune it. If they all decided to swap armies, who cares? I just swap your armies around, but
do something new. Okay, yeah.
But and they have a whole year.
Yeah,
they've got 365 days to put together a new army. Whereas
should be enough.
I would hope so. Whereas when I put this list out, there was only 5 months until the event would run, and I think the majority of players would have looked at their model collection, and then went to find a selector that fitted their collection. And that's what I did. I did that myself.
Yeah, that's where you start, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a year, then yeah, you could build for it. You could definitely go
because
for it.
there are so many other exciting and interesting theatre selectors out there that I thought would be really popular, but nobody looked at. But they need a bit of work. So there's nothing I would change. I don't believe I could make this event better. I don't want to. I just want to run the same thing again. I might even run the same missions again. It works.
The missions are fine. I mean, you could change that, but you really having those 3 missions where you have one where it's placement that really finishes the game sectors, one where it's the objectives, and one where it's just to kill the enemy. I like that spread for any sort of tournament event. I like that spread because it encourages you to do different things with your army. So you're not like mono building an army that does one thing really well, right? So I really like that.
Exactly.
Right. We're also going to talk about a few lists.
We are. Before we jump in the list, though,
okay,
I have taken inspiration from some of the videos you've done recently with Russell Wright.
Yeah.
When I think you guys were reviewing.
Oh, you've been doing some meta calculations.
but I've done it to be in exact opposition to what the English nationals or other hyper competitive tournaments are, and I want your viewers and your listeners to understand what happened at Megatron through another avenue. So the I'm going to ask you. So 28 players.
Yeah.
How many Stuarts do you think there were?
At this event, I think there were 2.
There was 1.
I was close, though. I was close.
You were close. There was 1 Stuart. It was a veteran Satan.
So not even the dark, the heated LMG sponsor. No.
Nope. They didn't even turn up. They were parked. How many medium machine gun teams do you think there were?
Well, there was more than 4. But I think there were less than 10.
Yeah, there were 7.
Yeah, I got it.
Now, but traditionally, if we were talking about a tournament, there would be 0.
Yeah,
there would be 0. How many flamethrowers, including vehicle-mounted flamethrowers, do you think there were at Megatron 3000?
When you say it like that, I'm going to say 5.
They're not silly. There were 17. Come on.
Okay. Okay. Whew.
Yeah, we're not crazy. It was still a tournament, but again,
but 17 is still, it's less than 1 per player.
Exactly. So if
that's amazing.
And that's the great thing is
all
that
the meta things are just peeling away here.
Gone.
Yeah.
And people had fun because when some of the theatre selectors, because they are themed to a historical period in time, engineer squads were 0 to 1.
Yeah.
for some of these armies. So
So, and
obviously
because you had one platoon, you could bring a flamethrower team and maybe one unit of engineers. That's
maybe
maximum two. Yeah.
that was it. That was it. Here's an odd one. Sherman's Sherman tanks.
Oh, there were do we count your 3 Sherman
No,
list?
I wasn't a player.
Uh, so your list aside, I am guessing 8.
There were 5.
Ah,
But again, though, that's
that's
Sherman
still way
tanks.
more than you're used to. Yeah,
Yep. And it's cool because on the other side of that, there were 5 T-34s as well.
there were.
Yeah, yep. But here's the big one, or the funny one. German Stugs.
Well, I've
Actually, why
seen
don't
a
why
bit
don't
of lists.
why don't I ask this? A combination of Stugs and Hetzers. How many Stugs and Hetzers do you think there were together?
Oh, I know that there were at least 2 stacks, and I
Yeah,
think that there was at least 2 Hetzes as well, maybe.
you're close. There was a combined 5.
There's a combined 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man,
There
this
was
is this is
one. There was one
so
Tiger. There were 2
absurd.
Panthers.
Yeah.
But this is I've saved this one to last. This will make the viewers really understand that Megatron 3000 was a safe place. How many LMGs do you think there were?
I'm going to say 18.
I stopped counting at 20.
You did?
I just gave up.
There were more than 20 LMGs.
Yep.
Wow.
And spread out through the infantry squads, there were more than 20 light machine guns.
Ah, that is safe space. That is that.
Yep.
I mean, what were
Isn't that
people
beautiful?
doing? I mean, have you learned nothing from my channel? What is I'm amazed. I'm gobsmacked.
I am so happy. I am so
That
happy
is
that
so
we
cool.
had a tournament take place where historical, casual, competitive, and new gamers all interacted. And before we've got 2 bonus lists that we're going to talk about in this video
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
the second video and the third video when we just do a deep dive on lists.
Yeah.
But when I was going around the tables, you could almost see these historical battles happen in front of you, and it was so special. I watched a Soviet, it was a Soviet mechanized guard platoon from the Budapest book,
Yeah.
take on I'm sure it was one of the German pocket defenders from Budapest. Purely random. It's like, oh, go
Yay!
crazy. There was a 1945 Soviet Eastern sort of China invasion thing. Actually bumped into a Japanese list.
Oh.
So it could have been like a Manchuria battle. There were so many really good matchups with German lists and sort of US and British D-Day selectors. It
That's
was
just brilliant.
great. Again, though, there was a few matchups that were not so historical, but
Well, you always get that. It was a tournament still, but the fact that you even had that feeling of going around saying, "Oh, this game is really cool." I mean, yeah. Um, I also think that that is part because when you have like above 20 players, you start and if everyone is on board with the same thing more or less, you start to like get that critical mass where everything's just in flow and you get good matchups and you get people like meeting up. Yeah, when it's fewer players, it like one outlying player becomes way more noticeable for me, at least.
yeah. And as we talk about some of the lists in the future videos that we're going
Yeah.
to record, some of the lists that we thought would do extremely well did not do extremely well,
Nope.
and there are lists that I think punched above their station.
A lot above. Yes.
Yeah, a lot above, and a good portion of that's always down to the player. but it is
Yes, because I
special to
mean,
see.
if just looking through the players who ended up in the top placements, I wasn't surprised by who ended up there.
No,
But looking at the
and
lists, I was surprised at
yeah,
who ended up on top and who ended up at the
and that's
bottom.
and we can talk about that now. All that's public
Yeah,
knowledge. Like Andrew Mackay
yeah,
finished first, Graham Thompson finished second, Brian Forrester finished third, and Phil Mason finished fourth.
yeah,
At any event in Scotland, those four names would be in the top 10 easily.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
let's give them the credit, the top 6.
yeah.
They are
They
you know
are
that
really good, and they are WTC players, many of them.
yeah
They are
yeah
stables at events. I mean, they know their stuff.
yeah and they enjoyed the format, and got to use lists that were not
Yeah,
you know as tuned as they would like to, but they were still enjoyable opponents. So yeah,
yeah.
good times. Megatron 3000 was a success. So
A
do you want to
huge
have a look at a
success.
couple of lists?
Let's have a look at a few lists, and I am going to share my screen again so that people at home can watch along with us. So, um, here we have one of them, and this is for Don Stewart. SAS Northwestern Europe
Yeah.
4445. I've actually looked at this list a couple of times myself because I find it very, very interesting from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah. So I am. So this is from the campaign D-Day US sector,
Yep.
and it is page 132. Look,
Yep.
viewers, this is a book.
Yep.
You see the
That's where the
book.
rules are.
The rules are in the book, not in Easy Army. You need to own the book, and I
Yep.
highly suggest Weldon Tabletop Wargaming. He'll supply the book. Got a website. Go and do it. But so for Donald Stewart, before we
Yeah.
get into his list, he finished 12th overall. He
Mm,
had 15 battle points. He won his first game, but only got 5 points. So
okay.
he missed out. He missed out on all the bonuses.
Yeah.
His second game, he got an 8-point win. So he got all
Ooh,
the bonuses
good.
bar one. I think he didn't kill the enemy HQ.
Okay.
But then in the third game, he ran into trouble. He got a 2-point loss.
Oh,
Um,
he
I know
ran into
why.
a good player.
Well, no, he ran into a really good list.
That
As we're going to
happens. That
see,
happens. Yeah.
the SAS Northwest Europe has got a few pros and cons, which we're going
Yeah.
to get into
It
now.
does.
So
It's a 12 order dice list, so it may have been a bit low in
mhm,
some of his matchups.
yep,
Veteran first lieutenant, SAS lieutenant, 2 men, and then the SAS infantry sections. I think they're built very similarly. One has one less rifleman. There's some machine guns in them. There's the Vickers K LMG.
yep.
Um,
It's worth noting for those SAS infantry sections, they are on a page 129 of the D-Day book,
yeah,
US sectors,
yeah.
and their basic unit is 1 NCO, 3 men, has
Mm.
to be veteran, 72 points.
Yeah.
So he's
So
already at a premium.
they are very, very expensive, but they're also
Yep.
very, very good. I've been playing SAS for a while now here in my more casual lists, and
Mhm.
they are very good. People will really shoot at them with all they have just because they're such a bullet magnet.
Yep.
You don't want to get close to them. They have fanatic and tough fighter, and they equip them with submachine guns, and they pump out a lot of shots as well. And he has
And
3 of these units, so that is quite a
do
lot.
you see there as well? He's got a light machine gun.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And each of them, I mean,
Yeah.
that is, I never do this at home. This is anyway, and he's bringing in SAS lead section as well. 4 men, and they have that first in rule, which I can't remember
Yeah.
what it
First in,
does.
lead squads may deploy in the same manner as snipers and spotters,
Yeah,
and in addition, they always count as hidden, regardless of what the scenario says.
yeah. And then low ammunition. Hmm.
Yeah, low ammunition. That's just their LMG will only fire 3 shots instead
Yeah,
of 4.
and they're
So
not
it's
they're not using an LMG, so he doesn't
yeah,
care.
yeah.
And then a few order dice units here, 4-man SAS submachine gun sections, 2 medium machine guns, veterans. I'm, no, it's a medium machine gun and then a bazooka team. I completely get the bazooka because with that amount of heavy tanks going in, you need something that has punch and range as well. So the bazooka I get.
Sorry,
The
have you
medium
misread?
machine
It's
gun.
a sniper team.
What? It's because it says machine gun here. It is a sniper team.
Yeah.
Okay, so a sniper team and a bazooka team. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I get those. And then we have the SAS transport jeeps, which is basically an armored car that has transport capacity, right? 4-man transport, so you can put your SMG units in those and transport them up and do a lot of shooting. And they all have recce, so
What
they are recce
what it does
transport
mean
vehicles.
though, they don't pop if there's
Yep,
enemy closer to them.
yep,
That's
yep,
the special rule, more than just a delivery driver.
yep,
So once your unit is out, you've still got
yep.
an armored car effectively.
You've
So
got an armored car. Yeah,
yeah, with a light machine gun. So it's a good little
exactly.
unit.
It is a really
Uh,
good little unit, and 45 points for something that has transport and recce and doesn't die when you. I mean, that's pretty cheap as well.
well, that said though, he's paid the 5 points to upgrade
Yeah,
the LMG to a Vickers K
yeah,
machine gun.
yes.
So at its basic points cost, it's 40 points
Mm,
for a 4-man soft skin transport with a light
yep,
machine gun that
yep,
doesn't die.
yep.
It's excellent. It's
It's
great little
excellent.
unit.
Yes, really nice little army. I would have wanted to have a few more order dice in it. What do you think about this army?
There's one last thing before I talk about the list.
Mm,
It's this theatre selector special rule,
yeah.
which is called strike from anywhere. Up to half of the units in an SAS force may always outflank, regardless of the scenario special rules.
Ooh.
Always outflank.
Ooh, that could be interesting. I
So
mean, sectors where you can outflank. Hmm.
we played sectors, um, and that was I think that was round 1, and he won that game, but it
Yeah,
was a small win. So I'm not sure what transpired for him, but that is potent,
it is. You
very
can
potent.
really do stuff with that. Yeah.
Um, so talking about the list. I know Donald Stewart, and he
Mm,
is one of these great historical players. So
yeah.
I am sure he's researched this and put
Mm,
together something that's pretty close to what existed. Um, Another benefit of the player though is I know he's extremely good.
mm,
He's a very good player, but he's more into his history.
yeah.
So
I just
when
noticed that he with his first lieutenant he has a forward air support as well,
yeah,
which is really interesting. I can't remember if that is uh, that's one airstrike, so it's not like an American double airstrike, but yeah,
I
a
agree.
lot of cool stuff here.
I
Yeah,
agree that he needed more order dice,
yeah.
and
It at least to optimize it, I think you needed more order dice. I also think
more.
that he. Yeah, sorry,
When you
go.
you go first. You go first.
I also think he going up against some of the lists, he would be lacking in anti-tank capabilities here.
Yep.
Um, but it
Yep.
is really a cool because it's so thematic, right? For the SAS that you go in lightly equipped, and most of the time you would be outgunned, so you would try to avoid the combat, just like um, try to cause a few casualties and get away. Um, and that's the theme of this list, basically.
Yep. What I would have done is, as you said, chase some more order dice. Maybe try and push it to 14, because when you look at the selector,
Mm,
his core one is he needs a lieutenant, he needs 2 SAS infantry sections. Then he's got the choice of 0 to 4 infantry sections, either SAS or SAS lead squads.
yeah.
But then there's 0 to 2 Maquis squads. So effectively, they're partisan squads, I'm
Yep.
sure.
Yep. Yeah.
I would have gone to those. I would have gone to the
Yeah. Because they're
resistance.
cheaper and you can beef out the force with those.
Yep. And you can have those big squads on outflank.
Yeah.
I would have doubled down on the bazookas because, as you said, that one of the great things about this format is that there's only a little bit of a surprise as to what armies you're going to face,
Yeah.
because the list of theater selectors that are going to be there is public. If you
Yeah.
want to research, you can
You can
look and
actually go and look. Yeah.
yep, you can look at the theatre selectors that have been selected by the player that selected them and go and look up the book and see this is what might come. So I'm sure I could look on the list, but Donald was late teens, early 20s on the list. So
Mm.
he could have looked back and he would have seen an Italian armored company.
Yeah.
He would have seen D-Day off the beaches. So there's 2 tanks potential there. He could have seen these things, but that's if he cared. Might not have cared.
He may not have. He may
No.
have thought that, well, this is what I feel like would be reasonable and thematic,
Yep.
and just went with that.
Yep. And we're saying that he's still got 2 wins and a loss. It's a good result.
It is a good result. That is really a good result, especially with an army where you have to skirmish all the time. You have to always be moving and pick your targets, right? Because you can't just throw like brute force your way through an enemy. This is not brute
No, no,
force
no, no,
at all.
no.
So
It's
yeah,
but he's a good player. He got
mm,
2 wins. Okay, one was a 5-point win, one was an 8-point win.
yep,
And then I know in the last round he bumped into an army list that had multiple armored
yeah.
units. And the last
And
mission, what was the last mission was key positions. So
oh yeah,
so he's
going up
got,
against armor and key positions for this would
yeah.
be difficult. Yeah,
So if he's if his opponent's setting armored vehicles on the objectives to contest them, he can't shift them off. So
no, no, you can't.
um,
Right.
and even if he had 2 bazookas, still struggle. But for me, I suggested this list to you to talk about because
Yeah,
this is my favorite selector of the whole event.
yeah,
Just so much fun.
yeah,
All those jeeps flying around,
yeah,
machine guns blazing, the 50% outflank.
yeah.
Go out and buy this book, everybody. It's a good one.
I mean, those jeeps, they're like those motorcycle with the sidecar and machine gun. They're so much fun to play, and they're just sipping out, and they're so fast. And with the recce, you're constantly moving. It's brilliant.
Yep.
Right. We are also going to talk about Callum. So I'm going to share my list and let the viewers see Callum's list as well.
So
Because that was another 12 order dice list, but this time a Panzer Grenadier.
yeah, so Callum Kerr is one of the newer players in Scotland, and I have played quite a few games against him recently,
Hmm?
just to build his confidence up as a player. Callum finished 18th overall out of 28. He had 12 battle points.
Well done.
Uh,
Is this his
yeah, yeah,
first tournament?
yeah. He was one of the boys
Nice.
who put his hand up. He got a 6-point draw in the first round. So for
Hmm?
a draw, 6 points, good
That's
result.
very good.
He had to take a 2-point loss in the second round, and then he got a 4-point draw in the third round. So I
Okay.
think it was,
That's a lot of victory points. He actually shuffled out of 2 draws.
yeah, it was really,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
So Callum, he selected the 12th SS
SS
Panzer
Panzer.
Grenadier Platoon, and
Yeah.
that is on page 167 of D-Day, British and Canadian sectors. Look, guys, I own that book as well. Get up, yeah, because the rules are in
Yay!
the book.
The actual rules.
Yeah.
Right. And he's bringing a regular second lieutenant with
Yep.
an extra dude.
I have to jump in here and say the painting on this was amazing,
Ah.
and I, we can talk about the best painted armies, but
Mm.
he just missed. There was 4 armies
Yeah.
that got 4 votes each, and he was one of the armies that only got 3 votes. Just missed the cut. The margins were so fine, but his I don't think he realised how good his painting was, and I just
Oh,
want to call it out for him. Callum,
yeah.
your army looked stunning.
Oh,
Had all the P dot camo going on. It was just brilliant.
oh, that is so difficult to get right.
Yep. He
Um,
actually told me how he did it, and then I went and repeated it on a unit.
yeah,
Use a toothpick. It's like, of course you use a toothpick.
of course. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Right. So second lieutenant with an extra dude, and then we have all these 12 SS Panzer units. We have infantry, um, 3 men with rifles. They get the Hitlerjugend special rule, which has Angriff, suicidal fanaticism, and fanatics. The NCO and 2 men have submachine guns. There's one Panzerfaust and an LMG, again with the LMGs. Second unit has one less SMG and a rifle more. And then there's a third infantry unit here, which has 3 rifles, 4 submachine guns, and a Panzerfaust. So more of a push unit, whereas the others are maybe more of backline holders, skirmish type units. Um, So a lot of special rules here. Not all of them are very beneficial as I remember them. Those suicidal fanaticism, that's the one that makes them die like inexperienced dudes, right?
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the offset for them getting fanatic.
Yep. Yeah. So that's an interesting combo because it fanatics make your infantry better in close combat and against flamethrowers, but suicidal fanaticism makes them die more.
Yep.
So
But that is combined with Angriff or
yeah,
Angry.
yeah, and Griff,
And
yeah,
this is the key part of it. And I played a game against Callum with this. If the unit fails an order test while on the table, the unit does not go down, but
it's
instead it
charge.
must be moved as far forward as possible to the closest visible enemy,
Yeah.
charging it if possible.
So it's sort of a Banzai.
That's exactly it. It is a cheap, or so it's a different version of a Banzai
Yeah,
fanatic army.
yeah, it
Um,
is.
and I know that that's what his vision was. There's that infantry unit that's got all the submachine guns.
Mm,
That's what he's done with them. He's packed them with submachine guns, Panzerfausts. Um, there's a pioneer section in
yeah,
there with
yeah.
flamethrower, most
We have
submachine
regular
guns.
pioneers, 2 rifles, 3 submachine guns, 2 Panzerfaust, and a flamethrower. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's worth noting, because people will be looking at that thinking, why the regular? Why the regular? He
yeah.
doesn't have another. He doesn't have a choice.
No, no,
He
they have
has.
to be regular.
They can either be inexperienced or regular.
Yeah.
That's the only options the 12th SS infantry squads or
Oh,
pioneers
imagine
actually
these
get.
being inexperienced. They would die on twos.
It would be it would be pretty bad. But
Yeah.
again, though, there'll be players at home wondering why. It's like because the selector doesn't give him any other
Yeah.
options. Um, what else is in his list, though, Bo? Let's keep.
Well, we have a medium machine gun team. Um, Inexperienced. Okay. Um, it's pretty cheap, but I would rather not, I think. A medium mortar, a spotter. I like that one. Sniper team, regular. A 222, armored car with a light autocannon. That is open topped, which is always it always bugs me.
Mhm.
Um, because the 222 is one, it's a really nice model. Two, it should be like it feels like it should be better, but it isn't. Then we have the Nebelwerfer. Very good, very competitive choice. Does it need to be regular in this selector?
No, he had the option to make it anything he wanted.
I would have gone with inexperienced, just because you're never hitting on anything but sixes anyway. A panther,
Hmm.
an actual real live panther.
I
9
know,
plus, Tiger Fear, uh, 10 plus to the front, super heavy anti-tank gun.
so good.
Oh
Love it.
man, 355 points.
Yeah, and to read from the options he had on tanks, tank
Yep.
destroyers, etc. It was Panzer IV, Panther, Jagdpanther, Jagdpanzer, the Flampanzerwagen, a Stukazafuss, Stummel, Grill, Wesp, Hummel, Flakpanzer, or a Wirbelwind. So his options were not
Oh,
universally open to him.
no.
Um, and I have to say, having played against him a couple of times, and one of them was with my Bloody Gulch 3
Yeah.
Sherman list.
Yeah.
Panther's a good option. It's good.
Yeah, against your 9+. I mean, he would rip your tanks apart if he
He
got the
did.
shots.
No, he
Yeah.
did. He
Yeah.
did. The Panther got one of my Shermans.
But it's just so damn expensive.
Yeah, the 222, his armored car, got another one of the Shermans in the side armor
Yeah.
because light autocannon, 2
Yeah.
shots,
Yeah.
+2
It
penetration,
will hit. Yeah.
and then an additional +1 penetration for the side with another +1 for thin side. So he was
Ooh.
+4 on the side. Yep, so that blew another one up. And the Panther immobilized the
Yeah.
third Panzer, the third Sherman. And that was another one of those games where it was like, historically, yeah, this could have been a battle.
Yeah.
And the result was like, what? The Germans have got one Panther and I've got 3 Shermans. 2 of them are on fire and one's immobilized.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much what
That
would
seems
happen.
pretty
Yeah,
reasonable.
that's pretty reasonable. Yeah.
And the final
Um,
unit is a 251/1, which is like it's a Hanomag,
yeah,
basically, right?
yeah, it's a half
With an
track.
MMG on it. So, and he has a transport capacity of 12 men. What would he put in? He would put the Pioneers in.
It's
Uh,
the Pioneers that go in there.
yeah, it's too big for the Pioneer units alone. But yeah, okay. Lovely list. Lovely to see a Panther on the table, actually. I just made a list review today for an American list that had a Pershing in it as well,
Mhm.
which is 400+ points. It's amazing that you can actually bring something like this to an event and not just get rolled over.
No, and Callum's experience as a player is building.
Yeah,
But to get 2 draws and a loss with this list,
yeah,
I thought was
really good.
really good, and I'm sure he held his own
Yeah.
in those draws quite comfortably. I think it was no, I can't remember his games. I'm afraid to say, but
Mm,
I know that the Panther survived 2 out of 3 games. I'm pretty
mm,
sure.
yeah.
His Neville Werfer did good business, and something that happened in our game. We played key positions
Yeah.
before the event just to give him some practice and to give me a run out because I knew I wasn't going to play at my event. Something really nice happened when you see a player develop tactically in front of you.
Yeah.
So it was positions. There were 3 objectives. I held 2. He held 1. And I pointed out to him that the secondary objective was quite close to the objective that he held. And I
Hmm.
said to him, "Oh, mate, you're going to need another infantry squad over there to try and claim the secondary to get those battle
Yeah.
points." He's like, "Well, not really, because I'm just going to move off of the mission objective."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Of course you are, because you can't win the game." You know,
Exactly.
there was
You're
no
just going
real.
for the battle point.
He was going for the battle points. I'm like, "That's an excellent tactical choice you've just
Yeah.
made, mate. Yes, absolutely, do that." And then something dumb happened for him, or it would have been unfortunate, because that unit had a couple of pins on it. It failed its morale check to move, and then he just laughed and went, "That's all right. I'm angry and fanatic." So he just ran forward onto the objective. I'm like, that's brilliant. Special rules for your selector work. They did. They
That's
helped you get
awesome.
battle points. It was so cool to watch.
And you know what's also awesome? To see a newer or beginning player pick something where there's a lot of special rules that you have to sort of keep track of and how they work, because these infantry units are not easy to utilize correctly. You can really easily get drawn into rushes where you lose infantry. Um,
Yep.
so I really enjoy that this actually worked for him. That's brilliant.
Now, I
Brilliant.
know he enjoyed himself. I'm hoping we'll see him at other events, but that when I played him, he had to explain these rules to me because I had never seen them
Yep.
before in my life.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing to experience something new in bolt action. You know, we've been playing for years.
Yeah.
We've played in, you know, world team championships and, you know, international events, and to have somebody else explain a rule to you, well, it was so refreshing to have. And you know, it would never have happened had it not been for the, you know, the ruling of theater selector only. So
Yeah.
you know, and
So great idea.
there's more theater selectors out there with stuff like that, and we are going to talk about them in future videos.
We are, because that was the end of the first one.
Yep.
Right. That was it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you with Alistair in the next video where we're going to talk about what didn't work so well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the lists that were
Yeah, we're going
towards
to
the
talk.
lower end.
Yeah, yeah. Not not the bottom itself, because no reason to like kick on people who are already lying down. We're not going to do that. We're just going to talk about some of the lists that maybe didn't work out as they could have. And then the third video will be again the lists that did work out and what that can tell us about a meta or what have you for theatre platoons. Right. Thank you so much, Alistair.
You're welcome. Take care.
That's it. Cheers.